In the shadowed streets of Harare, under a sky heavy with the weight of forgotten promises, a woman clutches a bulging sack that sags like a defeated soldier. It's January 2009, and her fingers ache from the endless counting, notes fluttering like dying leaves in the hot wind, trillions upon trillions in crisp, colorful defiance. She weaves through the market, past stalls where tomatoes gleam mockingly red, their price leaping from millions to billions in the time it takes to haggle. The air hums with desperation, vendors shouting over the crackle of radios, mothers bartering jewelry for a handful of mealie meal, children playing with stacks of currency as if it were confetti from a cruel festival. This is no ordinary market. It's a vault of vanishing value, where the Zimbabwean dollar, once a proud symbol of independence, now crumbles into dust. The roots of this silence stretch back decades to 1980, when independence unfurled like a banner from the ruins of Rhodesia. Robert Mugabe steps into power, his voice steady over podiums draped in green and gold, promising land for the tillers, prosperity for the people. But beneath the speeches, the treasury vaults echo with the first faint cracks. Farms seized in chaotic reforms lie fallow, export dollars evaporate like morning mist, and the government's coffers yawn empty. To fill them, the Reserve Bank fires up its presses, not with restraint, but with a fury born of necessity. Notes multiply from dollars to thousands, then millions, billions. By 2006, inflation whispers turn to roars. Prices double not daily, but hourly. A loaf of bread that cost 200 Zimbabwean dollars yesterday demands 2,000 Zimbabwean dollars today, then 20,000 by dusk. Wheelbarrows replace wallets. Office workers haul trash bags of cash to pay for lunch, their footsteps echoing hollow in emptying streets. In the flickering torchlight of government chambers, economists pore over ledgers stained with ink and sweat. Finance Minister Herbert Murarina warns of the abyss, but the machine grinds on, funding wars in the Congo, patronage for loyalists, deficits that swallow budgets whole. The local currency, bearer checks, agro checks, travelers' checks, they bloom like weeds in a storm, each denomination a desperate patch on a hemorrhaging economy. By mid-2008, the official inflation rate shatters records at 231 million% per month. Unofficial estimates climb to 89.7 sextillion% annually. Markets fall silent, not from peace, but paralysis. Shops shuttered, shelves bare, black marketeers whispering rates in shadowed alleys. The weight of coins? Forgotten. Now it's the burden of paper, pallets of it stacking in warehouses, guarded like relics of a dying faith. Yet in this chaos, human resolve flickers. A farmer in the highlands trades his last tractor for foreign cigarettes, smuggling them to the city for a fistful of euros. A teacher in Bulawayo burns textbooks to heat the family pot, tallying lessons in barter, eggs for lessons, maize for math. The dollar's fall is no abstract ledger entry, it's the crumbling vault of a nation's trust. Echoing footsteps mark the queues and banks, where clerks dispense fortunes worth pennies, their faces etched with the quiet grief of witnesses to ruin. And as the sun dips low, painting the balancing rocks in crimson hues, a motif on the very notes they clutch, the air thickens with the unspoken question, how much further can this pyramid of paper climb before it topples into silence? The printing presses of the Reserve Bank thrum like the heartbeat of a fevered giant deep in the bowels of Harare's industrial sprawl. Night after night, their rollers devour paper and spew forth denominations that mock the very arithmetic of survival. $10 billion for a single egg, $50 billion for fuel to heat it. By late 2008, the air reeks of fresh ink and desperation as convoys of armored trucks rumble through blacked-out streets, unloading pallets that tower like unstable monoliths in bank vaults. Robert Mugabe's inner circle huddles in torchlit boardrooms, their ledgers flickering under the glow of emergency lanterns, power cuts now as routine as the currency's decay. Print more, comes the decree, a whisper that echoes through the corridors of power, funding ghost soldiers, phantom farms, and the endless patronage that props up a crumbling regime. The Zimbabwean dollar, bearer of the nation's dreams, swells into a grotesque parody. $1 trillion notes flutter from the presses in 2008, their edges crisp, but their promise hollow. In the shadowed vaults where treasuries once gleamed with gold-backed assurance, officials tally the impossible. Inflation's jaws clamp tighter, prices surge 79.6 billion% in a single month, then vault to that sextillion abyss. A loaf of bread demands 100 trillion Z dollars by November, payable only in bricks of banded bills hauled in shopping carts. Markets, once alive with haggling voices, fall into an eerie hush, echoing footsteps of the jobless tread past boarded stalls, where mealy meal vanishes into foreign hands for hard currency. The government's response? Agro checks for farmers who till no soil, travelers' checks that travel nowhere, offshore accounts siphoning what little forex remains. War in the Congo devours billions. Land seizures choke exports of tobacco and maize, once the lifeblood of trade balances. The IMF turns away. Loans dry up like parched fields, leaving the presses as the sole lifeline, a serpent devouring its tail. Human stories pierce the statistics like shards through fog. In Mutare's hills, a widow named Tendai pawns her late husband's war medals for a sack of rice, only to watch its value halve before she reaches home. Factory workers in Gweru strike not for wages, but wheelbarrows to transport them. One man, Elias, recounts burning 400 billion Z dollar notes to cook his supper, the flames dancing brighter than any hearth in years. Children in Harare's townships fashion kites from trillion-dollar bills, watching them soar briefly before crashing into dust. The elite ferry duffel bags of cash to Mozambique borders, exchanging fortunes for loaves and liters, while ordinary vaults, family savings hidden under floorboards, dissolve into irrelevance. Crumbling stone warehouses bulge with unclaimed pallets, guarded by weary sentries whose salaries buy less than a cigarette. The weight of it all presses down, not coins clinking with promise, but paper mountains threatening avalanche. As 2009 dawns, the crescendo builds to its silent peak. Radios crackle with official denials, but the streets tell truth. Empty, save for the wind scattering confetti of currency. Locked treasury doors bar the way to redemption. Flickering torchlight reveals ledgers where debits outnumber credits into infinity. Mugabe's voice booms over state media, defiant, but the market's hush grows profound, a prelude to the unimaginable denomination yet to come. In this forge of fiscal folly, the dollar's empire teeters, its foundations eroded by the very ink meant to save it. January 16, 2009. The presses groan one final time, exhaling the $100 trillion note into existence, a fragile parchment etched with the Chiremba balancing rocks, those ancient sentinels poised in eternal equipoise above Harare. In the dim vaults of the Reserve Bank, clerks stack them like gravestones, their gold-shifting ink catching the flicker of lantern light, watermarks shimmering like ghosts of value long departed. This is no mere denomination, it's the apex of absurdity, a monument minted in desperation, its face value equivalent to mere pennies in stable currencies abroad. Vendors in the markets receive them with hollow eyes, bundling trillions into bricks for a single liter of cooking oil, while the wind whispers through empty stalls, scattering predecessors like autumn leaves. The note enters circulation not with fanfare, but a profound hush, the silence of a currency that has screamed itself mute. Echoing footsteps mark the final transactions in this paper apocalypse. A pensioner in Bulawayo, his hands trembling from years of hauling wages, exchanges a pallet of 100 trillion notes for a bag of sadza and saltfish. The clerk counts not the bills, but the weight, her ledger entry a ritual devoid of meaning. In Harare's high-density townships, families burn stacks to boil water, the flames leaping higher than any hope of redemption, painting faces in orange glows of fleeting warmth. The elite, insulated in compounds ringed by razor wire, dispatch couriers across borders with suitcases stuffed to bursting. Zimbabwean fortunes transmuted into South African rands or Mozambican meticais at black market whispers. Tobacco barns stand sentinel over fallow fields, their ledgers recording exports paid in foreign coin that never reaches the treasury. Crumbling stone vaults overflow with unspent pallets, locks rusted from disuse, guards whiling away shifts in the shadow of irrelevance. The $100 trillion note, with its Cape Buffalo and thundering Victoria Falls on the reverse, becomes totem and tragedy, a snapshot of hyperinflation's merciless zenith, where 89.7 sextillion% annually devours arithmetic itself. Yet, even as the presses cool, the silence deepens into strategy. Foreign currencies infiltrate the veins of commerce, U.S. dollars tucked into mattresses, South African rands fueling fuel queues, euros lighting black market beacons. Shops resurrect with price tags in greenbacks, bartering rings flourish in alleyways where wheelbarrows once ruled. Mugabe's regime, cornered by the void it birthed, decrees the unthinkable in February, the Zimbabwean dollar's multi-currency demise. Bearer checks, agro notes, trillion-dollar relics, all banished to the ether, their vaults sealed like tombs. Locked treasury doors admit no redemption. Flickering torchlight fades on final audits, revealing deficits that span galaxies of zeros. Markets stir faintly, voices returning in dollars' stead. But the scar remains, empty shelves etched in collective memory, echoing footsteps of the displaced wandering for sustenance beyond borders. The $100 trillion note fades not in glory, but oblivion, a silent sentinel amid the rubble of fiscal empire. Warehouses bulge with its unclaimed kin, paper mountains eroding into dust under leaking roofs. Human threads weave through the hush, the widow who frames her last trillion as warning, the trader who smuggles notes abroad for novelty's pittance. In this peak of collapse, the currency's pyramid topples inward, leaving not clamor, but the profound quiet of lessons unheeded, until the next chapter whispers from the shadows. From the rubble of Harare's silent markets, where pallets of paper fortunes gathered dust like forgotten prophecies, a quiet pivot reshapes the landscape. February 2009 marks the end. The Zimbabwean dollar, in all its trillion-fold incarnations, is demonetized by presidential decree, its vaults sealed against any claim. Foreign currencies flood in, U.S. dollars, South African rands, Botswana pula, stabilizing shelves and reviving the hum of commerce. Inflation's sextillion roar fades to whispers. Prices anchor in greenbacks, wheelbarrows yield to wallets once more. Bond notes emerge in 2016, pegged to the dollar at par, but skepticism lingers like smoke from burned ledgers, their introduction stoking fears of old ghosts. By 2019, a new Zimbabwean dollar attempts resurrection, only to falter amid fresh deficits, devaluing to echoes of its predecessor. Today, in 2025, the nation navigates a cocktail of currencies: gold coins minted as anchors, digital tokens flickering in cautious optimism. The 100 trillion note endures not as tender, but relic, framed in homes as cautionary icons, traded on global markets for $5 to $20, a souvenir etched with balancing rocks that never truly balanced. Echoing footsteps now tread tourist paths to those very stones, where vendors hawk the notes for pennies in stronger coin, the weight of history lighter than the paper it printed. What lingers in this silence is not just national ruin, but timeless signals any vault can heed. Hyperinflation creeps not with thunder, but the subtle grind of unchecked presses. Watch for prices doubling in days, shelves emptying while notes multiply. Build reserves not in one currency's shadow, but diversified, a portion in stable foreign holdings, gold's enduring gleam, or assets yielding real yield over paper promises. Avoid the trap of over-leverage. Debt swells like Zimbabwe's deficits when repayments outpace growth. Cap borrowings at levels breathable in downturns, favoring equity in land or skills that weather storms. Recognize early whispers when governments fund wars or patronage from thin air, or farms lie fallow from reform's haste. Step back from local bonds, channeling savings into global baskets. Families in Bulawayo learned this instinctively, hoarding rands under floorboards. Today, index funds tracking commodities or treasuries from solvent realms offer similar shields, compounding quietly against chaos. Diversify not from fear, but foresight. 20% in precious metals, 30% in equities beyond borders, the rest liquid for opportunity's knock. These steps, grounded in the ledger's unyielding math, empower vaults personal and profound, turning history's warnings into wealth's quiet guardians. As the torchlight dims on Zimbabwe's crumbling stone treasuries, a broader contemplation settles. Every empire, from Rome's debased denarii to Weimar's wheelbarrows, carries bankruptcy's seed in its soil of excess. Coins that once clinked with conquest grow weightless under endless minting. Markets hush not from prosperity, but the echo of trust eroded. Greeds flicker in ledgers, debt's slow avalanche. These motifs repeat across generations, whispering the same caution through time's vaults. Locked doors bar no lesson. The footsteps of the vigilant alone endure. In this cycle, personal resolve outlasts regimes. The widow who bartered metals, the trader who crossed borders, they glimpsed salvation in diversification's light. History does not doom, but arms. Heed its hush, fortify your own. And so, from Harare's balancing rocks to vaults unseen, the story fades into reflection. Thank you for walking these shadowed paths with Bankrupt History. If these tales guard your tomorrow, subscribe for the next collapse that history murmurs from the dark.